So I was reading over your consultation. So it looks like you already put a lot of groundwork here for Chance, huh?
I tried.
Yeah, no, I love to see it. Very proactive. So I had him since 8 weeks. Started with positive reinforcement stuff, and now you're already kind of transitioning to prong and the remote collar.
Yes.
All right, so go ahead and fill me in.
So I've been training him basically like the basic stuff, like sit down, here. We started on heel, but that is super hard for him so far.
Okay.
I don't think he like gets the idea that he has to actually stay by my side.
Yeah, yeah.
He'll get in a position and then he'll like
Forge ahead.
for now. And he's also like obviously because of the breed, he's very like high drive.
Yeah, I can see it.
And because we live in a busy street, basically like there's no like in between the house training sessions because well at home he's like doing perfect because there are no distractions. But once we're on the street, obviously there are birds, other dogs, everything. He's just like super distracted and it's like not focused at all.
Sure.
But his recall, well, with the e-collar, he's doing okay.
Okay.
But still, like if he's like focused on a dog or something, I will have to like go to pretty high levels, like to 60 to actually
60?
like yeah.
Okay.
On the mini educator.
Yeah.
To like actually get him to come back to me, but he'll do.
Okay.
So that is getting more reliable.
What's the highest you've gone on your mini educator?
I think 80.
Okay. And then what happened at 80?
Well, he definitely wasn't happy about it, missed some sounds, but he still came back to me.
Okay.
It wasn't like shocking to him, like
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was back to his normal self.
Okay.
I think actually he might go for like even 100 probably if he'll be like super focused on something.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Probably no.
Okay.
So basically, I do really want him to be able to heal. Like,
'Cause of your other dog.
Heal is basically, yes, like my priority because I have another senior dog who has the mobility issues.
Yeah.
And if I have to walk them together, I need him to be like
He has to
on
do
my
it.
side, so in case I need to help my other dog, I can just focus on him.
Okay. And you're doing online courses, is that correct?
Yes. So,
Is this for the e-collar?
Yes.
Does the online course cover heel?
Yes.
What does it teach? How does it teach for you to teach the heel? What method?
It's hard to explain. So they kind of go with the same thing. So you have to start with a prong collar, and you do like the corrective U-turns or corrective stops
Okay.
for the dog to like kind of follow you and know that it needs to focus on you.
Yes.
So once they get that idea, you can basically upgrade to the e-collar, and
Okay.
then you can use e-collar instead of prong. So basically, when the dog starts to like when you tell them to heel and they
Okay.
start to kind of like wander away, you just steam them until they go back in the position.
Okay.
But the issue with him, I basically have to like do it every like minute because he'll come back, he'll like take a few steps next to me, and then he'll just like try to go elsewhere.
And what's the highest that you've tried to correct them for the heel on the e-collar?
I would say like 62.
Okay. But he'll still keep doing it?
Yeah.
Okay. But you've not gone higher than 60?
No.
Okay.
Like he would whine sometimes. Like it is obviously uncomfortable. It is
Yeah.
He's feeling it, but like no.
Okay.
Still like good.
Anything else?
I think no. That's like the basic things that we've done.
Okay. So when it comes to the, is there anything else aside? I know heel's obviously super important.
Yes.
Are you trying to layer e-collar or teach e-collar for everything, or is it like your primary concern? Okay, so you want a fully trained dog.
Yes.
Heel just is your main priority.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, like, I guess with seats and everything, that is like less important. Obviously, like he does it well without an e-collar. But just to make sure I can take him anywhere, he's not distracted by other dogs.
Yeah.
So basically, like for heel, recall, those will be the top things. Probably just stays.
Okay.
So he can maintain duration.
From a breeder?
He's from the breeder, yes.
Did they train for drive dogs or did they train for family dogs?
They're kind of like super small breeder.
Okay.
Mostly trained for hunting.
Okay. Are you going to do hunting with him?
No.
Okay.
Mainly I was planning to do agility with him.
Okay, so he's going to have some kind of outlet.
Yeah.
Perfect. Just because when we get these kinds of dogs, like it's in his blood to do something. Yeah, so I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. So good, you did your research, so you're well aware that this is going to be.
I had a German Shepherd before, so.
Okay. Okay, so all that's good. And in the video, did they tell you how to fit the prong collar at all, or?
They do, yes.
Okay,
This is kind of like not where it's supposed to be.
correct.
Just because he's got like a lot of loose skin. And
Yeah.
like, every time I'm just like kind of going like removing one link and adding one link. Just
Yeah.
because when I put it here, it seems snug, but then he like, because of the loose skin, it's just.
Yeah, I think also because so I like that you have it secured to your like martingale there, but that's also why it's bringing it down. What I would suggest is that you there's a name. It's a coupler. It's two clips that clip to the prong and clip to the martingale, so that it doesn't drag it down. So it allows you to fit it up higher, and then it should ideally stay higher, because I can see with how it's fitted correctly with the martingale, since it's at the base, it's pulling it down. Okay, so
Oh, I think another thing I need to add.
Yeah.
for Training. So because English is not my first language.
Sure.
I was training him in Russian.
not a problem.
So I guess like I don't care honestly. Like if you have to train him in English, that's fine.
Uh huh.
Like I guess my concern was just like with the recall, for example. It's like an emergency. I'll probably forget it on the English horse too. So I was like, I need to be
Yeah,
sure
we can
how-
train them in any language you want. You'll just have to remind me, because I'm so used to saying heel or something. So like we have a dog doing the board and train right now. They did previous training. They use foos. Okay, so there's a couple times where I slip up and I say heel, and I'm like, oh no, that's foos, and then I remind myself or whatever. So yeah, you can train in any language that you want. Doesn't matter. Your dog can also learn multiple languages. So if you have both English and Russian for certain commands, like he can learn that. So that's not a problem. Okay. Anything else?
Probably not.
So you're on the right track with what you're doing. I think the issue that you're gonna come across. So I had another client a few years ago. I trained her first dog, which was a German GSP mix, who was very easy to work with. And then she loved the breed, so she went and got a full-blooded, from a breeder, GSP, and complete opposites to her first dog. Her first dog was kind of lazy, and all that stuff. Then she got a GSP, and he is drivey. Like he's got prey drive. Like he wants to do stuff.
Yeah.
Luckily, she's that personality type where she's like, oh, okay, like sure, I can match my dog. But yeah, he was a bit of work, and his number was definitely up there compared to his half brother. So you're on the right track. That you went, you said that you went as high as 80, which is good. One of the things that I struggle with as a trainer with my clients is their willingness to go higher. They usually want to keep it as low as possible, and they feel bad if they have to go higher. And every case is different. I help them figure it out. But there's some times where the numbers dog there's just higher than most. Most dogs tend to fall between 25 to 35, but we do get outliers. Okay.
I think it makes sense. And even the mini educator might not be like, he might have outgrown that.
Yeah, that was going to be my next thing. Yes. So the mini educator is meant for like a 35-pound dog and under. It is a great collar, but I would highly suggest you upgrade your collar, because I have had dogs where you're max power and it just doesn't do anything. Okay. So if you're already noticing, when the stuff that you're telling me sounds correct, and I go, this is most likely not really resonating just because it's not enough output, right? Because there's the different intensities. So a higher output collar, that 20 might feel different than a lower output collar's 20, right? So that's why they have collars for like little teacup dogs, and they have collars for 30-pound dogs, so on and so forth. Because he's like, what, 50 pounds?
I think so, yeah.
So, yeah.
Not even full grown.
Yeah, the mini educator's 35 pounds and under. So yeah, at least size-wise, he's already over that. So I would upgrade him definitely to the Dogtra Black Edition. I stopped using Educator a long time ago. They're a good brand, they're a good collar, they have great customer service, but I was having a lot of issues with their collar with behavior cases. And when I switched to Dogtra, it's been much more consistent. So ever since then, I just use Dogtra. It's 127 levels as opposed to the 100. It just gives us another additional 27 levels of variance. The Dogtra Black Edition is the highest output collar there is. So it's meant for like a Rottweiler, but it's perfectly safe to use for like a smaller dog. Okay, so I could put on my 8-pound Chihuahua. It's perfectly fine. We just get more from less. Okay, so I'm thinking with your guy, he's going to get bigger. we have working drive that we have to override, right? So all these things are things that I think about when I think about output is we're going to need to address or cut through all of this, right? So like right now he's unable to like relax, right? So it's the best collar there is. They last for a really long time. My last system lasted me almost 10 years before I had to replace it. So because it runs around 340-ish with tax. I always tell my clients, we sell them. I don't care where you get yours from. I don't care if you get it online or whatever. I just care that you do get the correct collar, okay? Because that's definitely going to impact the training. In terms of like length of time of the program, and cost and everything, it just comes down to like how much you're trying to achieve, right? So you want a fully trained dog. So initially, with how I train, I don't worry about food. We just do everything through pressure. And then later on, you can always layer food over the exercises, okay? The reason, so puppies up until 6 months, we use food, positive, clicker, gentle eater, all that stuff. After 6 months, when we graduate to remote collar, I tend to not to. For most people, it's too much. For you, because you've been doing this for a while, it's teaching you the core concepts. I know with a remote collar, I can train a dog. I don't need additional things, right? But then for my clients that are like yourself, who are capable and wanting to go the extra mile and like add and like do all the pieces, we can add them in for sure. But if you're walking with your other dog and this guy, the last thing on your mind or last thing you want to think about also is like food stuff, right? With remote collar alone, I know we can get the control that we're needing. And then if you're just working with him on your own, then that would be like a context where you can implement your food if necessary, okay? But more often than not, the only time we really need to incorporate food is if we have a dog that doesn't take pressure well, they're too adverse to it. We'll use the food to help balance it out a bit. Or if we're working on behavioral stuff and we're trying to create positive association. But I would say 98% of the time, we do training strictly remote collar, okay? The first thing that we do cover is heel. It's always the first thing that we teach. Because for most people, leash pulling and leash reactivity are the two most common things that we get coming through here, okay, that people want to fix. So heel helps address both those things. Also, when it comes to conditioning the collar, people tend to see the collar as like a last resort, or they tend to think of it as like the dog is so bad that they need it. And I go, no, it's like the best training tool that there is. No, he's fine. For me, we jump straight to it because it's the best training tool. So at least with the leash walking, most people walk their dogs 3 times a day, 7 days a week, unless they have access to a yard. So that's 3 times a day, 7 days a week that we're practicing this exercise. And that's how we make really quick progress, okay? So once we cover the healing exercise in the first class, I would give you your homework. You'd go off, rinse and repeat. You come back class 2. You give me feedback. Jesse, this is working, this is not working. This is worse, this is better, whatever, right? Hey, buddy. It's okay. And then I go, okay, cool, we're going to make some tweaks. And then we teach the second half of heel. So I teach heel over the course of 2 classes. The first week, we don't use the word heel or whatever cue you're going to use. We teach that afterwards. Okay, so I would shape the behavior first and then layer in the word. Okay, so then you go off after your second class and then you rinse and repeat. The third class, I usually like to jump into recall because recall is the one command that takes like the longest to teach. I had a client, I trained her first dog, she came back, I trained her second dog, and she told me her first dog took her 6 months before she considered the dog to be off-leash reliable, okay? Because you have to hope that the weather is nice, you gotta go to the park, put your dog on a long leash, hope that there's distractions, right? And if you practice too much, sometimes the dog won't leave you, so then you have to be careful not to practice too much. There's a lot more that goes into it. So the third class, I like to go into recall, because I know it's gonna just take a long time for the owner, okay? Fourth class, we can teach stationary control. I like to jump into place command because it's the easiest to teach first and the easiest to apply to start teaching him how to sit still, which he has a hard time with, right? So now you're practicing that. And then we'd go into like the sit down, stay stuff, okay? So if you're wanting a fully off-leash trained dog, you're looking at more a 9 to 12 week program. If you're just caring about heel, recall, and place, then that's more like a 6 class program, okay? So it just comes down to how well trained of a dog do you want? So I know what I can get done within a period of time, which is why I'm very confident with how I pace my programs, because as long as the owner is willing to to do what's necessary. So like if Chance, correct? If Chance's number happens to be 80, and that's the only time he'll listen, and you're going down to 40 because you don't want to do 80, you're not going to make progress because Chance needs 80, but you don't want to do 80. Does that make sense? When I get my clients that go, okay, this makes sense, I'm going to do it, and they do it consistently, we make progress because we're working with what the dog wants or what the dog needs, okay? So within a 6-class program, I know we can cover heel. That's going to be 2 classes, recall class, stationary control class. That leaves us classes 5 and 6, okay? And I can either show you how to advance these things to the long leash to already start building them towards off leash because we're only focusing on a couple of things. If you're wanting all the commands, sit, stay, down, come, place, heel, to be built towards off leash, then we have a longer program, right? Because now we're having to shape all these things and then transition them to the long leash and practice over the course of time. Now in the beginning, the programs are week by week, but at a certain point, especially if you do a long program, let's say you do a 12-week, typically by class 9, you'll know everything. It's just a matter of practicing. So typically by that point, I'll tell the owner, take your time, go off and practice, and then come back when you're ready, okay? So I might not see them for 2 months between classes 9 and 10 because they need time to practice, they need time to make mistakes. It's almost always going to happen where the owner misremembers something and they're practicing wrong, and then they create a problem and they'll come back and then I'll say, show me what you're doing. I'm like, oh, that's why this is a problem because you're doing it incorrectly. I'll help them fix it and then they'll go off and practice some more.
So I was actually thinking about the daycare and train program.
Okay, so you want to do a daycare? Sure, sure.
How is that,
Different?
Yeah.
So there's pros and cons. Daycare and train, we get the training done for you, right? And I record the first lesson of everything that I teach for your dog. The first video is always the longest, okay? So let's say you do a 10-day daycare and train. That's equivalent to like a 2-week board and train, okay? The first video that you get is always the longest. It's about 2.5 to 3-ish hours, okay? Because I'm filming the first thing, the heel, the sit, the stay, the down, everything, okay? So you see it happen real time, and it's with your dog. May I see him? Come here, bud. He's a nervous guy, too. I know. It's okay. Good. Good. I filmed the first thing, so you see it, okay? So I think it's very important that as an owner, you see how the dog is trained so you understand everything, okay? Most daycare and trains and boarding trains, you drop your dog off, it's trained, you pick up your dog, and then it's like, well, how did my dog get here, okay? I also recommend, if you're touring places, to look in how much follow-up that you get. I had a client, they did a 4-week board and train, they only got half an hour, okay? Does that sound right? For us, they would get 8 hours of follow-up, right? So for every week that we have your dog, at least for a board and train, you get 2 hours of follow-up. I'm not sure what it is for the daycare and train off the top of my head, but it is on my website, is making sure you get plenty, okay? So you understand how your dog got from point A to point B, okay? But then also, if you're gonna reinforce everything, it's not as simple as pressing a button. We have to condition, but if your dog doesn't understand it correctly, if you're not understanding it correctly, good, you can then undo the training. Does that make sense? So I teach it, you watch the video, and you go, okay, this is what I do, you go and reinforce. So we're all on the same page. Daycare and train works in tandem with the owner, okay? So I do all the filming the first 3 days. So if you drop them off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I film everything, and then it takes me a couple of days to edit and make the video, okay? And then I send you a link and I go, here's the video. The next filming doesn't start happening until day 6. Okay, so like let's say you do them for the board and train, you do the first 3 days, you get your video, you watch the video, you practice for like a week, okay? And then you come back and you're like, you know what, he's having a hard time sitting still. I go, okay, cool, for today's daycare and train, we know what to focus on. And then we practice that. And everybody here is working with him, myself and all the other staff members, so he's getting work by different personality types, okay? So when we do training, one thing that we do stress is extended stays. So on place, they do at minimum a 2-hour session twice a day, an AM and a PM session. In some cases, we have some dogs that struggle with overstimulation and anxiety. He's one of them, from what I can see here. You can see how he's shaking here, right? Because I'm telling him, you have to sit still, and it's causing him stress, okay? So when we see this, our instinct typically is to do less, but it's not, it's to do more, okay? Eventually, the brain, this becomes exhausting to be like this, that he learns to calm down, okay? So if I see he's struggling, I'll tell my staff, keep him there 2 to 4 hours, right? So from like 8 a.m. to like 12 p.m., he might be sitting there, and they might pull him off to do a training session, and then they'll come back and they'll put him right back on again, right? So he's getting pressed with, you just have to sit still, but that's what gets the dog over it sooner, okay? So the daycare and train is meant for us to work with the owner side by side. Okay, so then you're taking what he's learned from the daycare and train, you're practicing on your own. When you bring him back for another day, you let us know what you feel like he needs work. We make a note, we work on that, right? When you hit the 6th day, that's when we go into the transitioning to the long leash to start building towards off leash. Okay, so then I take 2 days to film the 2 videos. It's shorter, usually around 45 minutes to an hour. I send you that link. Same thing, you go off and you start practicing on your own. And then you come back and you say, okay, for today, could you guys please work on this? We make a note, and that's what we work on for that day. Does that make sense? So the pro to a daycare and train is I get stuff done very fast, okay? That I lay down the foundation. I give you the information, like maybe he needs 80, and I'll tell you, don't operate less than 80 or whatever in the video. The con is the training is tied to us, right? Because we're the one breaking through all this stuff as opposed to being tied to you, okay? If you do an in-person program, the con is it takes longer because you have to train your dog, and I'm training you to train your dog. The pro is the training is already tied to you from the get-go. Does that make sense? And you're learning everything real time. So if you came back from class 1 to class 2 and you're like, hey, Jesse, I have this problem, I talk you through it. If we can recreate it, we can create it. I walk you through it. You do it yourself, and then you, okay, cool. And then when you go to practice, you already know how to do it because you did it. Does that make sense? So it really just comes down to, do you want this done in a shorter amount of time? And I don't want to say learn less, but not get as much education? Or do you have availability to take the time and then get much more information? Okay? I don't care at the end of the day. Your dog is able to do both. Okay? I'm very much about if you're able to do it yourself, you learn so much more. Because you're going to make mistakes, you're going to screw up. You come back, you give me feedback. I go, okay, here, this is how we fix it. Otherwise, he's also welcome to do a daycare and or board and train. Okay? Question on any of that stuff?
I think for me, it's still like probably more convenient to like have him do the
Daycare? Sure.
Just because I don't have a car, so like for me, like driving.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah.
So at least like, if we use your transportation service and, like he gets in and he does all of that.
What neighborhood are you in?
We're in Lakeview.
Oh, you're in Lakeview? Nice. Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Don't have an issue with that. The only time we don't do daycare and boarding trains is if the dog is human aggressive, because the owner has to know. I'm like, this is your dog. You have to know how to do this. This is easy. This is behavior. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
If like there's any way for me to maybe come in during the training session or something so I can learn more, I'll definitely be able to do that. Because for me personally, to come here is much easier than like try to find a car to like bring the dog every day. So yeah, if there's like a way to combine those, so I can learn from the videos and potentially maybe
So
watching you doing it in real time.
With the daycare and train, you get follow-up sessions. So like, If it's the same as my board and train, if you do a 10-day, I would think you would get 4 hours of follow-up. It's on my website for sure, so I haven't looked at it in a while. I know my board and trains for sure. It's 2 hours for each week that we have the dog. Is once you start practicing everything, and you're like, hey, I'm having issue with the recall or whatever, right? A couple things that you can do. In the spring, summertime, when the weather is nice, we train out of Oz Park, right? So then my clients meet me at Oz Park, which is just south of Lakeview a little bit. And we're out in the real world. There's dogs, rollerbladers, squirrels, people, there's jazz bands, there's birthday parties going on, and we're in the middle of it. And we're doing the follow-up lesson in the park, so that you're learning how to do everything in an actual distracting environment, okay? In terms of if I'm training the dog here, we don't have clients come just because I don't know when I can train the dog. It just happens if I have 3 other board and trains, my day is just all over the place. Plus I have like my in-persons. But you do get follow-up, so you will get time with me regardless with the program, okay? And I do it that way because, again, I understand that in the video, there's some stuff that just doesn't transfer well. So then it's almost always with recall too that owners tend to struggle with. So then when they have the follow-up, I help them clear up that discrepancy there, okay? So you see how now he's relaxed? Do you know why he's relaxed? Or not relaxed, but calmer?
Because he knows he can do it better.
Right, so I fixed the prong a little bit, right? He was nervous, he's very timid. So when I started to pull him towards me, he was doing that. So when people see that, they feel bad and they want to stop, but then he learns if I do this, it'll stop. So I just pulled him, rotated him. He gave us a little nervous piddle here, right? And then he was really resistant to me trying to sit him down because he doesn't know me, okay? So I took my time, I worked him through it. He got up a couple more times, but then the following times it was very simple because he's understanding, oh, you just want me to do this. Now, I don't care that he's laying down because I didn't tell him to sit. What I was telling him was to relax, right? And I used the sitting position to help the dog relax. And eventually he's like, okay, well, if I can't wander and sitting is too uncomfortable for a long period of time, can I lay down? I go, sure, because you are relaxed, which is what I care about more, okay? That's the difference between behavior and obedience. Obedience is mechanical, sit. And I think I saw you tell him sit, right? And then he sat for a moment and then got up because physically he was sitting, but mentally he was going. So right now, by doing what I did, I addressed him mentally. And from that, I've got now a more relaxed brain, okay? So this is just as FYI for you, okay? Questions on any of that?
That makes sense.
For the daycare and train, think of 1 week with us as 3 weeks of your time, okay, in terms of what we get done within a week of training or whatever. I always tell people, ideally at minimum 2 weeks, because we got the first week, which is the foundation, and then by the second week, we're already transitioning towards long leash. And then after that, it's just a matter of how close do you want us to get to fully off leash, okay? Now, regardless of any program that you get, there will always be work on your behalf, okay? If a client drops her dog off for 4 weeks, I'm gonna get that dog a lot farther to off leash, but there's still work on their part, because again, the training is tied to us, right? With the daycare and train, because we work in tandem with each other, if you drop them off the first 3 days, then you go off and do training for the rest of the week, and then you come back and you drop them off on a Monday of the following week, and you say, could you please work on this, right? And then you can go off and practice the rest of the week and drop them off the next Monday. Like, it doesn't have to be Monday through Friday, okay? We're gonna make progress regardless because of how we train. I get dogs that sometimes I just see them once a week or whatever because of the owner's schedule. We still make progress. It's just gonna be longer before they get their video because I need at least 3 days to get the initial video done, okay? So if you're wanting him to be closer towards off leash, then a longer program. So we have 5, 10, 15, and 20 day daycare and training. So 5 days equivalent to like 1 week board and train, 10 days equivalent kind of to like a 2 week board and train. And usually, if a client's wanting off leash, I tell them at least 2 weeks. And then you can get to off leash on your own. It just takes time and repetition. They're very simple exercises. It's just literally time and repetition. The difference here is the first week is on the short leash. The second week we transition to the long leash. You know where you walked in right there? That big open area? That's where we train there. with the dog, but there's nothing going on because it's the foundation. By the third week, we're working the dog around distractions, like in our activity room. By the fourth week, they're in the playpen, actually training with the other dogs, as long as they're social. So we're able to work the dog through phases, but that's all the same thing that the owner would be doing. It's just we're, how do you say, doing it in a more controlled context. Okay. Question on any of that stuff?
So for him specifically, how long do you think he needs?
I think just 10 days, honestly, fine.
10 days?
Yes. It all comes down to, are you reinforcing the training? And are you putting the time aside to practice your training? Because regardless, if we had your dog for 20 days, if you're not practicing and applying, like, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
You know? So you're more than welcome to sign them up for a longer program. But at minimum, if somebody wants off leash, I'll tell them at least 10 days. Okay. Other questions?
So, because he's like kind of timid, you can tell.
Mhm.
Does he get any time with like other dogs?
Yeah.
Like kind of
Yeah.
work on that potentially, at least
Oh, like socialization?
in a way. Like he's not aggressive or
Mhm.
anything. Like when we meet dogs in the dog park, he'll like take 5 minutes and then he'll just start playing with them.
Yep.
But like I'm still kind of like trying to figure out if he is like just really like scared of everyone, or he's just like unsure, because like those are different things.
Yeah, no, he's unsure for sure. He's just, and so when I brought him like this, because I'm forcing him like this, it's confrontational. So it makes the dog feel threatened. Okay. It's like right here, right? So when I go to pull them, I'm not doing a lot of tension. If you look at my fingers, I have 2. I'm just slowly going, and the brain is going, I can't. So the way that we actually work through that is by making it do it, because I'm not causing him any harm, right? He's anticipating something. Yeah. So he works through it, and then when I go to sit him down, very tiny little pressure now, whereas before you saw me really kind of having to push, because the brain's starting to realize, like, okay, I don't need to feel this way, okay? So it's really just repetition, working them over the hump, but most people, they see that and they want to stop. Does that make sense?
No, because like had those online classes and they go in depth and they explain how it works, and then you have to like push through it.
Yeah.
Because same thing when I was starting like to even like teach him walk on the leash, like he was the same. He was just try to back off. Like he would never walk on the leash if I was just like going with that and saying okay.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like fool you.
Yeah.
So that makes perfect sense. So like it doesn't like scare me over it.
Sure.
It is the way you train them.
Yeah. But that's actually how we teach the brain to tolerate more, is by exposing and then pushing through. Now, this is not going to change. Okay, this is your dog's personality type. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's nothing good or bad. It's just genetics. There's nothing that you did wrong. This is just genetics. Okay, but definitely, like, you're already on the right foot, because you already started training right away. You're already progressing to pressure, which is your prong and your remote collar. Right, you've already done a lot. You've just hit a plateau, right? So that's where the online course that you're watching, to me, sounds good from what you're telling me, but it's, again, hard to close that gap, right? Because then it's like, are you gonna pull out your phone and watch the video while you're working with them, right? So that's why I always encourage in person, which you're still gonna get the in person. So I'm not too worried about like with the daycare and train. It's not like you're getting your video and that's it. Like, I'm gonna actually at some point work with you, so that when there's those things that are just not connecting, I go, oh yeah, sure, this is how we actually fix it. Okay. Now, when we're working with him, we may see resistance and stuff, especially if I'm gonna have to be using pressure, and you want to think like he's in an unknown environment with a person he's barely knows, and I'm putting him under pressure immediately. All those factors tend to create like a lot of resistance. So like the dog that she's finishing up her board and train now, her number initially was like 50, and then by the 3rd to 4th day, it dropped down to 18. Okay, because now she started to understand everything, and then she wasn't so stressed out. So everything now I've been doing with her has been an 18, but in the beginning it was high due to her stress levels. So, and this is stuff that I fill you in on too, as well as we're training in the videos. And in some cases, the dog's numbers are high and they just happen to stay high. Okay, but I'll help you figure all that stuff out. Any other questions or?
So how is the transportation work for the daycare?
Sure. So that would be scheduled with Elizabeth most likely. There's certain days that I know we're pretty booked. Like I feel like Thursdays, like we have like already 20 something dogs and it's a full van. So she'll probably say, give you a couple of limitations, just because the van is booked. But right now, I think the only day that's full is Thursday. But she will know better than me. Okay. So then, for daycare and train, if you want your video sooner, you'd want to send Chance in 3 days in a row as tight as possible. I'm here Saturday through Wednesday. I'm typically not here Thursday and Friday. Unless like I have to, like we had a client who had to board their dog or like train like on Thursday. So I like had to drag my ass over here and train the dog, whatever. So I do come to check in and work with dogs if needed. Otherwise, all my staff will work with the dog, but I'm here Saturday through Wednesday. So like, let's say you sent him Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. In those 3 days, I get all the filming done. And then I send you the video within 2 to 3 days, depending on my availability to like sit down and edit. And as soon as you got that, you technically don't have to schedule your next day immediately. You can wait for your video, watch the video, take a week or so to practice, and then go, okay, I want to send them in on Tuesday. You know, and then please, if you guys could work on this, and then we would do that, okay? So you don't have to set it up to be like every Monday if you don't want. It's really at your leisure. But if you want your first week video sooner rather than later, then you want to send him 3 days in a row as quickly as possible, okay?
In any case, it's like if we're doing 10 days, so basically he goes for a few days 1 week, then I'm training him on my own, filming the videos, then he goes again, and this is basically what we get.
Yeah, the next filming wouldn't take place until day 5. Okay, so filming is days 1, 2, 3, and days 5 and 6. Okay, because in days 6 and 7. Because on day 6 and 7, I'm starting the second week of the board or the daycare and train. And it sounds crazy, like if we had a board and train and you dropped him off on the Saturday, he'd get his first week, and by the next Saturday, we're already transitioning to long leash, okay? It's just because of how I train. Training through pressure, the way we do, allows us to very quickly make progress and to start pushing the dog already towards more advanced stages. And then for the owner, the reason why it takes longer is because you're learning these skills, whereas I already have these skills, right? So we're able to push these things a lot more quickly than the average dog owner. That's why I say 3 weeks of your time is 1 week of our time, because we already know how to do this. We do this day in and day out, okay? A lot of people always ask, like, oh, Jesse, when do I know my dog is off-leash trained? And I tell them, you know, intuitively, because you're the one that does all the work with him, right? Sometimes I've had clients whose dogs were really well trained, but the client didn't trust the dog because their skills weren't there yet. And they would build the skills over 3 months. You know, and then 3 months later, they'd have their dog off leash because now the owner caught up to the dog. So when he leaves here, he's going to have all the skills. But now you got to catch up to all his skills, okay?
Well, that was one of the reasons why I kind of decided to have him train with a professional, because, you know, like, I definitely need more skills to train him further, and it's just, like, best for him to be able to kind of, you know, get there until he's, like, fully grown, and then he's, like, fully out of control and all of that, you know, like, so he gets there early.
Yeah. But yeah, everything's in time. And, you know, if you're trying to send him sooner rather than later, you're going to have a little bit of a delay in most likely catching up to him just because of the winter with the snow and everything. Like, you know, you're not going to want to be out there, but at least I wouldn't want to be out there with the dog, right? Trying to practice my training and stuff. Not until like the spring, summer will you most likely really kind of be able to take advantage of your training. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason why you can't start sooner, but that's just something that I would anticipate, is that the winter weather obviously is going to probably hinder you a bit maybe with practicing and stuff, okay? The only commands that really need to be practiced outside are heel and recall. Sit, down, stay, and place can all be done inside. That's not a problem. So anytime you walk them, you can use your heel. The only issue I would see there is I'm assuming this is going to be his first winter, right?
Mhm.
Is these guys tend not to like the winter too much just because they're short coat. So then what happens is you're trying to heal him, and he's like, "Get me home, Mom. It's freaking cold." So then he's like trying to forage, but that's not him being disobedient. That's him going like, "I need to get home because I'm cold."
Yeah.
So just a few things to expect there. Okay. Other questions?
But otherwise, if we wanted to start as soon as possible, what would be like
The earliest? I'll be out of town from the 25th through the 1st. I believe I'm back in on the 2nd, which is a Tuesday. I would say if you're trying to do in a row, probably by the 6th, I'll be back here, and you could do Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then I can knock out all the videos or whatever. Or you could do the 2nd, the 3rd, and then the 6th I could finish up the final day of the filming or what have you. So Elizabeth or Maria, whoever's going to be doing the booking. So Tina does my schedule, and then if you're doing daycare and train, she's going to forward you towards my facility staff because they handle the scheduling for the facility itself. Because I do know we also have a couple of board and trains that are coming in, and I only work with 4 dogs at a time, just so that the staff isn't overworked, and then we're not overwhelming ourselves with dogs, that we're not having quality in our training because we're just trying to train so many dogs or whatever. Okay, but we do have availability for January. Okay, we need a clear fecal from him, a recent one, and then which is pretty quick. Usually vets can get it done within 24 to 48 hours. And then his vaccination records. Once all that's clear and submitted, then if you want to start sooner, it's pay in full. If you're trying to reserve future dates, it's just half down, and then the remaining half before the program starts. Okay.
the transportation? Do we have to pay in full as well, or is it just like when you're?
Yeah, the transportation is we do bundles. It's not that expensive. I think like a 5-day is like $70 or a 10-day is $70. Like it's not that expensive for the transport. Are you planning on sending them to daycare regularly, or is it just for the daycare and train program?
I'm not sure. I think daycare and train for now.
Okay.
Potentially you might need some daycare
Okay.
or boarding.
Okay.
Something of that sort.
Sure. So if we're only going to be doing transports for him temporarily, we would just need a set of keys, unless you know you're going to be available every time.
I'm gonna be available.
Okay.
And what time is usually the pickup and drop off?
So we do 3-hour windows. It's usually between 7 to 10 o'clock, depending on where you fall within the transportation day. Just because with traffic, especially with the snow and stuff in the wintertime, like we just can't give. So that's why we do the key. So in case like you have to leave or something, and then it's like, hey, we're here, and like, oh, I left. Like we have no problem. We just go and grab the dog and then head out.
I work from home, so most days probably I will be able to.
Okay. And then for drop-offs, it's the same thing too. You'll receive an ETA, but if they say we'll be there around 6, it might be 6:15, 6:20, pending traffic. Plus they have to factor in getting off the van, bringing the dog in, getting back in the van, and then going again. So there's always going to be some kind of variance there. Okay. Other questions?
So for, sorry, I'm just trying
No,
to
you're fine.
understand. So for example, he goes, his first week, he goes in for 3 days, he trains, then we get the videos.
Yep.
And for how long would you say I need to train him on my own before he goes in again?
It's really up to you. So with the video, because we're covering 6 commands, sit, stay, down, come, place, heal, is typically, you're not going to start off working everything. You might, I usually recommend clients to heal and place. Those are one heal because we walk every day, place because you can practice inside. Once you get that down, then you can add on, recall or sitting down or what have you, okay? So you're welcome to do the 3 days. You could take 3 weeks if you wanted to practice and then send them back for day 4. We don't care. It's really your personal preference. We have another client who did the 3 days and then continues to send a dog every Wednesday. But they're doing a 20-day, or no, I'm sorry, 15-day. But also she was coming for daycare prior. So now her daycare day is now her daycare and train day. But that was their preference. They did 3 initially, get the video, And then since then, every Wednesday they just send her once a week. Okay. The first week video is always the longest. And the second week really doesn't matter until you're ready for the second week video, you know? So it's not like you're gonna watch it and right away start doing it. Like you still have to catch up to the first week, you know? So yeah, it's really flexible in that manner. You're not tied to, you have to send your dog this and that. You're welcome to do the first 3, get your video, practice for a week, a day, 5 weeks, and then reach out and go, hey, I would like to book now my 4th day or whatever, okay? Other questions, or does that answer your question? Yeah. Yep. Other questions?
So what would be the process to sign up? Essentially, do you reach out to Tina?
Yeah, so what we'll do is I'll email Tina, and I'll tell her, hey, she wants to do a daycare and train, and she'll most likely send an email to you with my other, with the info email on it, and say, hey, you know, Maria would like to send her for a daycare and train. Please help her get set up. Okay, you'll create a Ginger profile for him, which is our boarding software. And then you can upload your vaccinations and his fecal there, or you can email it to us, and then my staff will upload it for you. And then from there, you pick when you would like to start your training, and then they'll invoice you, okay? So if you want to book, let's say, for example, January 6th, right away. You could pay half to at least hold your spot, but then by January 5th, you'll have to have paid the second half of the program. Or you could just pay in full, and then you just have your spot reserved, okay? And then when it comes to the collar, we sell them here, or you're welcome to purchase one on your own. You will also get this information in the email. I don't care where you get your collar from, but I do care that you get the correct collar, okay, which would be the Dr. Black edition. If you get it through us, you don't have to worry about anything. Once he's dropped off for his daycare and train, we'll send him home with his own collar and all that, okay? Other questions?
Would it be possible to see, like...
Yeah, I want to take a little swim? Yeah. Anything else?
So another thing that, I know it's like not covered by the program, but he also has like a problem with jumping. Is that something that could be, I don't know, included too?
Yes, so I'll review how to correct behaviors.
Replace with another one?
I'm sorry?
Replace with another one?
No, that's technically an approach, right? So like if your dog is sitting, they can jump, right? But if he really wants to jump, he's still gonna jump. So then we work on correcting the behavior itself, right? So the e-collar does 2 things. It can teach behaviors, sit, stay, down, come, place, but it can also correct behaviors. Like technically, e-collar could correct the whining right now, right? I like to think of the e-collar as a bite on a button. So like another dog, if they wanted to stop his whining, they would just nip and bite at him. Same thing for the jumping. If he jumped on a dog, they would nip and bite him to teach him, like, don't jump on me. So I can cover that. It's not a problem. And like, let's say in the follow-ups, there's a question that you have that isn't addressed in the videos, we can address it in the follow-ups. The follow-ups, it's not like you can only use them for what's in the videos. They're there for you. I just show up. I show up and go like, what would you like to work on today? And if you go, I would like to review recall. I go, sure, let's cover recall. If you're like, I want to cover resource guarding, then we cover resource guarding. Even though it's not in the video for the resource guarding, I go, yeah, it's not a problem. If everything else is good and you have this time, you're more than welcome to utilize it for other stuff too. As long as it's within my wheelhouse, I have no problem with it.
That's good.
Okay. Other questions?
I think, no, yeah. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Because he's like still 6 months, do you think we will need potentially do more training?
No.
Like him?
No. So the way that I go about it, I train for life. So sometimes I've worked with clients and I'll train their first dog and then they'll get a second dog. And because they already know how to do it, like they'll train the second dog on their own because they already know how to do it. Does that make sense? The only time, like I had a client who I trained his dog in 2019 and he actually came back just this past summer. And they did a refresher, okay? And he's like probably maybe the second person in 12 years of training dogs who's come back to do a refresher. But what happened was we trained in summer of 2019. The world shut down in 2020, so they weren't reinforcing the training. And then he got a new partner, and his new partner didn't know how the e-collar worked. And this was before I started teaching the way that I train now. Whereas before I used to train the dog in front of you and then have you train the dog. Whereas now my clients show up and I teach them to train their dog real time. So I don't even touch the dog anymore, okay? So he came back for a refresher just because it had been such a long time. But all the training was there. Like literally within 5 minutes of the first class, the dog was listening right away. So it was just that they weren't reinforcing everything, okay? The most common issue that I come across is that owners fall into this thought process of the dog at some point will become a good dog and then just do it. And that's not true, right? Your dog will be a good dog because you're doing a good job of reinforcing everything, right? So which leads me to my next point. Clients always ask, when does the e-collar go away? In my book, when you need it, it doesn't, correct, and it doesn't. But if he's a great dog inside the house, you don't need it, right? If you go to your parents' house or a friend's house and you bring him along and he's great, and you don't need it. But if you're going on a walk, if he's gonna be off leash, if you're gonna be utilizing that prey drive of his, like you're gonna need it, right? But you shouldn't always be having to use it. There's rare instances where I get a dog that is so drivey where the owner just has to manage the dog, but it's because of the drive. Most family pets, it's simply present in case something happens, right? If they follow the instructions. What happens with most clients is they try to be too nice. And like I said earlier, if the dog needs 80 and they're at 60, the dog's not gonna listen because the dog needs 80, not 60, So that's usually where people tend to struggle, okay? But the way I look at it, unless you're wanting to teach them something new, like finish, or like weaving between your legs, or like doing some other kind of fancy stuff, then obviously you would need more training. But the way I do my training, this is why I'm more expensive than most, is because I train your dog, and unless you want to learn something new, chances are I'm not going to see you again. So, I know. Other questions?
No.
Have you seen any of our training videos?
I've seen some on the website.
Yeah. So a good one to watch. On my website, on the front page, there's one of a pit bull like kind of smiling in the sun. Her name is Lake. She's a behavior case, but I break down how e-collar works, just so you kind of get everybody uses e-collar differently. So you just kind of get an understanding of how I go about it. So she's like super like crazy, and by the end of the class, she's actually calmed down just from the remote collar training that we were doing. I would say similar with him, just because like right now that whining is because he wants to do something, but I'm not letting him do anything.
He's just uncomfortable. Like he's so bony that he can't be like lay down on something hard.
Big baby.
Good opinions for.
Other questions?
No, I think, yeah.
Okay, I'll show you around the place. Break. Oh, and then like for the Russian stuff, just if you email us what words you want to use, I might also need you to probably help me with a little bit of pronunciation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a problem.